interviewed by actually several reporters that have come over here from France and from Great Britain, Russia even, Switzerland. Anyway, a whole host of European countries. And do you realize that they only allow, I use that term loosely, only allow for abortions in the first 12 weeks of pregnancy? They look at us as ghouls for allowing abortion all the way till the 9th month of pregnancy for no reason whatsoever, and even abortion on live babies. So when you look at the polling data, those people that say abortion should be legal only after 12 weeks, 76% of the people. And when you start going to 24 weeks, the third trimester, we've got 90% of the people. So friends, when you talk about Albuquerque and what the electorate is saying here, 90% of the people are on the side of those that want to outlaw abortion after the 20th week. We win this debate, hands down. How many people do you think agree with us on the deaths of Jennifer Morbelli and Tanya Reeves, both in the last year, not to mention Maria Santiago and a host of others that we don't even know their names? We were only fortunate enough to get these two women's names, and it was only through massive amounts of research, digging, and persistence that we were able to get their names. Last year, the CDC reported that the incidence of maternal deaths during an abortion doubled from 4 to 8. We only recorded one of those. And we know that the CDC does not work for the pro-life movement. And most abortion deaths get recorded in another criteria. They're loath to report it as an abortion death. And we've read too many autopsies and dealt with too many medical examiners. We know this to be a fact. They do not want to report abortion as a cause of death. But we get 100% of the electorate on that. Nobody agrees with women dying from abortions. On top of that, we have the high ground when it comes to the criminal activity being perpetrated in the abortion community. Something that Operation Rescue has done is changed from a protest group when we would sit in front of the doors of an abortion clinic and rescue babies one by one. We began focusing and highlighting on the injustice that's going on inside the abortion industry. I call it the abortion cartel. And making sure that these abortionists see justice. We see Carhart up here in the yellow. He was dumping illegal waste. He's the one that actually killed Jennifer Morbelli. We have a criminal complaint against him before the Maryland Board of Medicine. And before they could even look at it and review it and make a decision on it, he botched yet another abortion. The woman on the right is Bertha Bugarin. She was the last one holding the keys to the chain of abortion clinics in Southern California we called Clinica Medica. At one time, I think they had 10 or maybe 12 abortion clinics. They're all closed. We're able to successfully get the medical licenses of all the abortionists revoked. And at the end of the day, she was the only person holding the key. She was the owner of the corporation, but she didn't have a medical license. But she wanted the money so bad, she continued doing the abortions. She was sentenced to 2 consecutive 7-year sentences in San Diego County and LA County, practicing medicine all her life. It's good news, and it happens again and again. The guy on the bottom doing the perp walk is Rapine Osantenham. He owned 2 abortion clinics up in the Cape in Massachusetts, and he killed little Laura Hope Smith. And on the 3rd anniversary of her death, he was sentenced to 6 months behind bars, another 6 months home arrest, but he was also forced to pay $2 million in restitution. Both his abortion clinics are closed, and he'll never, ever practice medicine again. This guy, anybody know this guy? Close to Arizona here. He's an old nemesis of ours. He's serving 35 years to life in Arizona Penitentiary. His name is Brian Finkel. He did 20% of all the abortions in Arizona. 20%. He called his abortion clinic the Vaginal Vault. And before he was convicted, at the end of his trial, over 100 women had come forward to testify and to claim that this pervert had sexually violated them. My friends, these things are not an anomaly. Isn't that what they said about Kermit Gosnell? He's an outlier. He's an anomaly. This happens every single day, and it's something that we're detailing. And when we do, we win. This is the abortion clinic of Robert Alexander. And I love this place, in a sense, because it's closed. But I love the story surrounding it too, because Robert Alexander was practicing the most filthy, disgusting abortion clinics, just like Gosnell. Rat infested, ceiling falling in, mold everywhere. If you look at this cart there, the white cart, you can see that there's a suction machine underneath the pink cloth, and the jar there is the suction jar where the remains of the babies go into. It's still half full with remains of babies. The rust that you think is on the side of that cart is actually blood, and the hose that you see is laying on the floor attaches to the cannula. And yes, that's the operating room table. Interesting thing about this is we were tipped off by an informant that this place was operating like this, and we put a complaint into the local authorities. And right around Christmas vacation, I was down in Florida with my family, and I got word that the health inspectors, the fire department, one of the two, busted in the back door. They got word that the door was busted, and they came in to see what it was all about. I think the police did, and the medical inspectors were called in after the fire department or the health inspectors saw it. And they closed the place for zoning. They just condemned it, they closed it down, they said the ceiling was falling in, this is a disgusting place. Sounds a lot like Kermit Gosnell, right? Well, the audacity of the abortion industry was really hilarious, because when they went to go interview him, they said, oh, that Troy Newman guy, he broke in my office, and he did all this. No kidding. He said the place was clean, it was perfect. What was the quote, Cheryl? It was perfectly fine? It was something like, oh yeah, when I left it to go on Christmas vacation, it was clean, it was perfectly fine. So when the investigator from Muskegon, Michigan called me up, I said, oh yeah, when I break into abortion clinics, I bring mold and blood, and I can make the ceilings fall in. It's like magic, and I can do this in a blink of an eye. And he laughed and said, yeah, we pretty much know that this is the disgusting place that it is. When we bought our abortion clinic, we bought an abortion clinic in Wichita, Kansas, and threw the bums out. It was another way to close abortion clinics. It looked just this bad. It smelled just this bad, as bad as you can think. The mold, the filth, the grime. Every abortion clinic is substandard. And we believe we can close every abortion clinic just by using the laws that are already on the books. Here's 3 women who are operating right here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Bud and Tara interned for us for about a year and a half before they came here to work with Father Embarado and Project Defending Life. And I'm so proud of them because they were able to uncover dozens of 911 calls emanating from the UNM and from Boyd's Abortion Clinic here in Albuquerque, which has become the late-term abortion capital of the world. Horrific botched abortions. One of them, the doctor that attended this woman she had a ruptured uterus. I mean, literally inside of her, as they were trying to induce almost a full-term pregnancy. I think it was 35 weeks. That baby was 35 weeks. Her uterus burst inside of her. They had to rush her to the emergency room. The doctor, the attending physician, said it was a miracle against miracles that that woman is still alive. These are the sort of botched abortion stories that we don't hear every day, but the stories that need to be told. Because when the other side focuses in on the big rape exception or the war on women, we tend to lose the debate. But when we talk about these things, we win. And we win convincingly. And then the dam that burst was the Kermit Gosnell trial. We sent Cheryl Sullinger out to look at the trial, to be an observer at the trial. And when she showed up, the courtroom was empty. They had cordoned off 2 or 3 rows for media because they were expecting an influx of media from around the world. There was nobody that showed up. Cheryl Sullinger and I think just a couple local reporters. And we began to tweet, we began to do our Facebook pages, and we began to go out under social media and shame the media. I think the Casey Anthony trial was going on at the same time, or some other crazy trial. This is a guy that was being charged with killing Karma Monger and several babies that were born alive, and he slit their throats in the front or snipped their spinal cords in the back. He was distributing drugs, Oxycontin, like a pill mill, which was first caused the investigators to come. And when they came and they looked inside, they said, "This is a house of horrors." And they brought in the district attorney. They had babies in bags, babies in cans, babies in milk cartons, babies in freezers. When the rats began eating the babies in the basement, he brought in a couple of cats. So the cats began to urinate and defecate throughout the whole place. I was at this building. I could smell the stench standing outside the building 4 months after they closed it down. He had a separate office or waiting room that was just a tiny bit cleaner for white women than he did for black women. He was afraid that the white women might tell on him. This is Kermit Gosnell. He's not an outlier. But what it gave us was the Gosnellian effect, as I lovingly call it. Is that now the lid has been blown off the abortion industry. This man will sit in jail the rest of his life on murder counts. He was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder for killing innocent preborn babies or born babies that were born alive. Had he snipped their spinal cord a millimeter inside the mother, he would not be sitting in jail today, at least not on murder charges. So there is no distinction between what Gosnell does or what Curtis Boyd, Shelley Sella, and the rest of the people over at Curtis Boyd's place are doing now. There is no distinction. The day he was convicted, we were working with Life Dynamics, and these 3 women testified on Life Dynamics video, a 14-minute video detailing the exact same, and I might submit to a jury at least, even worse conditions that were going on in Kermit Gosnell's place in Douglas Carpin's abortion mill in Houston, Texas. Anybody see this video? Okay. It rocked Texas. When Rick Perry saw this, he said, we're going to call for a second special session, and we're going to pass a bill very similar to the bill that I think is being introduced here in Albuquerque. This is the Gosnell effect. We are now on a collision course with victory if we can maintain the stamina, if we can maintain the Gosnell effect, if we can maintain and keep talking about the issues that keep our position moving down the road, and we don't succumb to the other side's rhetoric. Additionally, there's like I said, there's no end to the winning issues. The concealment of child sex abuse, we saw that again with Life Dynamics, fiscal malfeasance, they're embezzling money. It's another issue with Douglas Carpin. Kermit Gosnell was doing that as well. Sex selection abortions, Live Action has talked about that. We've known about it for years. The wholesale distribution of fetal body parts to universities is rampant. It's illegal. These are the things that America doesn't want to talk about. They want to talk about the baby that was conceived in rape, and then maybe that's okay. But when we convince them that every abortion clinic is a Kermit Gosnell, we win. Which brings me to a suggestion for the pro-life movement. With all of this information, I think it's now socially acceptable and safe for the pro-life movement to call ourselves anti-abortion. The media's been calling us anti-abortion for years, and we've been calling it a pejorative. We didn't want to be labeled something anti. We want to be known as what we're for. We're pro-life, we're pro-baby, we're pro-baby diapers and pro-maternity, and I'm not saying we should abandon that. But historically, when you look at the movements that work, Mothers Against Drunk Driving is not a pro-sobriety campaign. I don't think they're teetotalers. I don't. But I think they're against drunk driving. I saw some signs around here. End DWI, right? They're against drunk driving. The anti-smoking campaign is not a clean air campaign. It's not a clean lung campaign. It's anti-smoking. Same thing with the anti-slavery campaign. When you're against something, don't be afraid to tell people what you're against. I'm against abortion because it kills a baby and it injures a mother, and oftentimes it sends that mom to the local emergency room fighting for her life, and sometimes it sends her to the morgue, like Jennifer Morbelli and Tanya Reeves. We need to be convincing in our rhetoric, and we can't just do that with pro-life. In order to map a path for victory, we must be anti-abortion as well, and not ashamed of the title. When people call me an anti, I say, dang right. Have you known, have you studied what goes on inside the abortion clinic? Do you know what happens in there? So when we focus on these things, we win. Since 1991, the high watermark for abortion, 71% of all the abortion clinics have closed. It's like owning a VHS machine today. I still have one. I think it's in my storage unit. I bring it out for those old rescue tapes, Mark. An 8-track.
Coming back, baby.
Yeah, and so's abortion. It's not happening, guys. Do you want to know why they're so upset? They see the numbers. Cecile Richards flew into Texas at Obama's request and I remember when this was us, okay? Now it's them. They're chaining themselves to the banister. They're chanting, they're screaming, they're disrupting a legislative process. Illegally, I might add. And when they passed the bill, they caught people bringing in used tampons, fecal matter, urine, and one guy with a gun. The pro-lifers were not hiding, but they were protecting themselves inside the senators' offices until the Capitol could be cleared of pro-abortion people. So Cecile Richards said, this is going to close down all the abortion clinics in Texas. All of them. Good. Did we say we're banning all abortions like in South Dakota? No. Did we say we're going to not allow the poor 9-year-old girl that was raped by her daughter not to have an abortion? No. The draconian law, the one that oppresses women, the one that is the war on women, requires abortion clinics to meet the same standards as ambulatory surgical centers. The one that is so backwards, so misogynistic, it actually requires an abortionist to have hospital privileges. Oh my God, how horrible. It makes a lot of sense, folks, and this is why we're winning. When we choose our turf, we win every single time. Let's just look at this year. These are the numbers, baby. 43 abortion mills have closed in 7 months. Come on. 20 of the medical abortion mills and 19 of the Planned Parenthood referral centers. And I don't even know if that number's right. Cheryl emailed me another one this morning. They're closing by the droves. They're going downhill. They're plummeting. Even though they've got the most abortion president in history, even though they're getting the most amount of money in history from the federal government, even though they're going to be a provider for Obama.